5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to Checkered Flag. It's the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, marking the beginning of the second half of the 2025 season. I'm Harry Benjamin and I'm joined by F1 journalist Rebecca Clancy and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Now, I don't know about you two, but we've got 2 more races until the official summer break. But I feel like we've just sort of accidentally had a bit of a mini one. It's been 2 weeks since no Formula One action on the track. Have we been off sunning ourselves? What have you been up to, Beck? Anything good?
Were you under the ground for the last 2 weeks, Harry? Did you miss the news?
We've not been on the track. I thought it's sort of, the weather's been glorious in the UK. Andrew, I imagine you've been off at the beach, sunning yourself, getting those legs tanned.
I may have been writing some stories about Red Bull in that intervening period, Harry.
Oh, God, come on, guys.
I hope you had your hat on, Benny, if you were in the sun.
Well, yes, thanks, yeah.
Benny never forgets his hat.
No, he doesn't.
Never.
Actually, I haven't got my hat with me today, but I am in the Ardennes Mountains where it's a bit cloudy, so...
Is it mountains or hills?
Mountains.
Is it definitely mountains?
Mountains. Well, then it depends. I mean, how technical do you want to get? I think they're
Not
probably
at all.
not as high as a technical mountain, but...
Well, we're the BBC, Andrew. We've got to get technical about these things, so we've got to know.
Okay.
I imagined rolling hills, and that's how I've sort of been going with it, but...
Do you think this podcast is going to get better?
Well, let's hope so, shall we?
Yeah, a bit more than rolling hills, I think.
All right, I'll take your word.
It's not the Himalayas, let's be clear. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Well, take your word
Don't get Benny started on his trip to the Himalayas. We'll be here all day.
No, that's for a Checkered Flag extra in an off-race week.
I could talk, rather like I could talk about animals all day, I could talk about mountains
all right,
all day.
we're not going back there. Right, I'm drawing a line in the sand. Okay, even though there's been no on-track action for the last couple of weeks, as you have alluded to both, the news cycle certainly hasn't been quiet. Of course, this weekend will be the first race for Red Bull Racing with a new CEO and team principal at the helm. This has come as a result of Christian Horner, the longest serving team principal in the paddock, following the British Grand Prix being sacked by the team. We'll get stuck into that in a moment and bring you up to speed with where we're at. We will also get all of the reaction from those involved, including new boss Laurent Mekies and Max Verstappen. Outside of that, Sauber driver Nico Hülkenberg reflects on his first ever F1 podium after a mere 239 Grand Prix starts, and will reflect on today's sprint qualifying. But first, let's bring you up to speed with how the championship is looking. Off the back of his win at Silverstone, Lando Norris has closed the gap to championship leader Oscar Piastri to 8 points. The Australian sitting pretty with 234 to his name, and McLaren's lead at the top of the constructors' standings is now double Ferrari's, who lie second, 460 to 222. It's certainly been a dream year so far for the Papaya squad. But the big news, which we are talking about most coming into this weekend, was that on the Wednesday, following the British Grand Prix, it was announced by Red Bull Racing that after 20 years running the team, Christian Horner was dismissed, with a final farewell granted to him to the factory at Milton Keynes that same day. This comes in the wake of 18 months of off-track controversy and on the track, a steep decline in performance. So, Beck, obviously this is the thing dominating the headlines, but has it actually been 18 months in the making for Horner?
Yeah, I think this is very much a case of when, not if he departed. I think the timing is the big shock here. I don't think anyone's particularly surprised that he left. To very quickly recap, at the start of last year, there were allegations made by a female employee about inappropriate behaviour and coercive behaviour. 2 internal investigations at Red Bull cleared him. He has denied the allegations. But that was sort of the start of the end for him. Jos Verstappen, Max Verstappen's dad, was very vocal, saying that Red Bull couldn't survive with Horner at the helm, basically. There was a big power struggle that went on. The Thai owners of Red Bull had the majority stake versus Austria with the minority, but it was the Austrians who very much wanted Horner gone, but they weren't able to do that. So it has been rumbling on for a while, and I think with Red Bull winning championships, it's much easier to keep your place at the top of the team. But I think what we've seen this year, Max Verstappen is only 3rd in the championship. He's well out of it, let's be honest, in the Drivers' Championship. In terms of the constructors, it is just McLaren. They've got double points more than anyone else at this stage, and we're only halfway through. So Red Bull aren't going to be winning anything this season. And I think as soon as you start losing on track, people start looking at you a lot more closely, at the leadership, and they didn't like what they were seeing from Horner. He had very much consolidated power. He was very much in charge of everything, whereas the Austrians, we know they wanted to grapple back a bit of that power and they weren't really having it. So there have been huge amounts of power struggles going on. It's still not particularly clear why it happened 3 days after the British Grand Prix. Perhaps that will come out more. Toto Wolff was asked about it at Spa today, and he said, I think more things have been going on behind the scenes. So Mercedes team principal there just maybe stirring the pot a bit. But yes, I think it has been 18 months in the making.
Stirring the pot in Formula One? No, never going to happen. I mean, Andrew, 18 months in the making, quite possibly. But we know there's obviously the Austrian side to Red Bull, and then there's the majority Thai shareholders too, which I believe they did back Horner. So something obviously happened for him to lose total backing. I understand why he's gone, but there is that overarching question of why after the British Grand Prix, why at that point was the beginning or was the end for Horner?
Well, the talk in the paddock is about a meeting in Dubai a few weeks ago in which Horner was involved with Oliver Mintzlaff, the boss of Red Bull in Austria, the overarching boss of the Formula One team effectively, and Shalom Uvidia, who's the Thai main shareholder that Beck was referring to. Something seems to have gone a bit wrong in that meeting for Horner, and all the sort of ghosts that were sort of howling around in the background have come out to haunt him good and proper. They weren't happy about the control he was exerting in the team. They weren't happy about the way he was responding to some attempts to row back on some of that control. They weren't happy about his response to the lack of performance from the team. And when you add that, so that effectively lost him the support of Shalom. And then when you add that to the allegations of sexual harassment and coercive controlling behaviour that were made against him by the female employee last February, which is what the Austrians would have fired him at that point if Shalom hadn't supported him. So the minute he lost Shalom's support, it was curtains, basically.
I wonder also, Beck, how much the Ford partnership has maybe had a bit of bearing on Horner's future. They're coming in as the powertrain supplier for Red Bull next year, and you know, the CEO of Ford, that they pretty much they can't have this. It's bad news. It's bad press. Do you think that's maybe played a factor as well, looking slightly long term into what is a brand new regulation set, which is going to be a clincher for Red Bull and the future of Verstappen, etc., etc.?
So as Benny will know, we were all having lots of conversations with everyone, and I spoke to some people who were close to Ford last year when all the allegations were coming out, and they were extremely unhappy with the situation around Horner. They didn't feel particularly confident at that point with the partnership in terms of him being at the helm of it. They didn't like the look that went with it, the association, despite the fact that he was cleared. And it was a bit of a tricky road for a while between Red Bull and Ford and that partnership. It was always going to go ahead, to be clear. There wasn't any suggestion that Ford were going to pull out, but they certainly weren't happy with what they were witnessing. How much influence they had? Possibly some, probably some, let's be honest. That's how business works. But I think at the end of the day, Horner is probably a bit brutal to say, he's responsible for his own demise. So it was always coming. He did, as Benny said, he had too much control. The Austrians didn't like it. He was doing marketing for Red Bull and Racing Bulls and everything else in between. And so in that sense, yes, Ford would have been involved in conversations, I'm sure. But I think as a partner, you're not really getting involved with the sense of who's running the team. But I'm sure in meetings they would have made their feelings very clear. Essentially, like so many downfalls in Formula One, this is a story of hubris. You know, Horner effectively got too big for his boots in the eyes of the shareholders, and that was his undoing, just as Ron Dennis did with McLaren about 8 or so years ago. That's what led to his undoing as well. It's sometimes what happens when people get put into a position of power and authority. Sometimes they take it too far, and I think that's what's happened in this case. Well, along with Horner, other key personnel have also been removed from the organisation, the chief marketing officer and the communications director at the same time. Oliver Mintzlaff, Red Bull's chief executive of corporate projects and investments, said this in a statement put out by Red Bull: "We would like to thank Christian Horner for his exceptional work over the last 20 years. With his tireless commitment, experience, expertise and innovative thinking, he has been instrumental in establishing Red Bull Racing as one of the most successful
and attractive teams in Formula One. Thank you for everything, Christian, and you will forever remain an important part of our team history. We'll come on to the legacy that Christian Horner brings, but of course, a lot of talk around what happens to the lead driver, Max Verstappen. Let's get his perspective on what's happened and when he first found out.
Maybe half a day before it came out, and that was it. Management told me about it, and then life has to go on because we had the 2-week break, so there were of course from team side a lot of things going on, but at the same time I already had basically like a week planned of holidays, so in a way it was also good just to reflect on the first bit of the season, and just come back here and just go again, try to be better.
How does this change the way you are thinking about your future?
No, nothing really. It has no influence to what I'm doing, really. At the end of the day, the team made a decision to do that, and now from our side we just have to move forward, look forward. There are a lot of things that I guess that we want to work on and be better at. And hopefully, we just keep doing that.
Have you seen the team a bit shaken for the change?
No, we are racers, Of course, when someone like Christian has been part of the team for so long, I guess initially everyone is a bit like, whoa, what happens? But everyone has to also look ahead, and we have to just keep working, and get the performance here on track.
Have you had any chance to talk to him on the phone at all, Max, Christian, and do you understand why it's happened now?
I mean, of course I spoke to Christian. I mean, I still spoke to him even today. So in that sense, of course, the relationship never will change also from my side. We have experienced so many things together in the team, and of course, great emotional moments. And, for me, the team anyway feels like a second family. And of course, Christian is included in that, so... I'm just incredibly thankful for all the moments that we have lived together, and that there is a time that someone goes, if that's Christian or me, in a team, that happens. That is what happens in sport anyway. No one is there forever, but of course it happened at a time maybe where a lot of people didn't expect that. But at the end of the day, I'm the driver, and the management made the decision, and you have to continue.
Can it bring stability? Because I know you want that in the team.
Well, let's see. I mean, they made a decision, and now, from our side, including the engineers as well, we focus on the performance on the car.
Hi, Max. So with Laurent coming from more of an engineering background maybe than Christian was, do you think that might bring a positive change in approach for the team moving forward?
Let's see. I mean, so far, I've had a few chats with Laurent already, and I mean, he's been incredibly busy the last 2 weeks to catch up, of course, first of all within the team and with everyone, and getting to grips with everything. And for sure, we keep addressing the things that we want to work on within this year's car, of course also next year. And it's of course a very fresh relationship, but I think so far he's a very friendly guy, and of course I've known him a bit longer already, but now of course Laura being part of the team, I'm excited to see what we can do.
Thank you.
Hi, Max. So the news when they broke, the perception is that this brings you closer to staying with the team. Does this affect your decision about the future?
I mean, from my side, there's anyway nothing really to say about my future. I know that I'm here and I'm happy where I'm at. The only thing that we want to do is become more competitive, and that's what we are working on.
Max Verstappen speaking earlier there to the media. Beck, do the last 18 months of Christian Horner's tenure at Red Bull undermine his achievements with the team from the last 20 years?
No, I don't think so. I think he'll go down as one of the greatest team principals the sport has had. 8 drivers' championships, 6 constructors' championships. He was at the helm from the very start, as Red Bull is in its current iteration. I think he's been incredibly impressive. 2 periods of domination, 4 double titles with Sebastian Vettel, 4 straight constructors with Max Verstappen. So I think you cannot get away from how successful he has been. He clearly had the right team around him and underneath him working for him, with the likes of Adrian Newey, who obviously left last year, which was an enormous blow to Red Bull. And we know he left because he wasn't happy again with, as we've mentioned before, the situation with Horner and the allegations. But he did a very good job at putting together a team of people, and Newey was absolutely central to that. And as part of that success and riding through the different regulation changes and creating a workplace where they were extremely successful. However, as you know, Benny mentioned about Ron Dennis, there is always going to be a little bit of a, certainly not a question mark, but not tainted, I think that's too strong a word, just it probably, he didn't bow out at the top, let's say. It wasn't, the grand finale that he wouldn't like. Everybody wants to leave on their own terms. Nobody wants to be pushed out the door, certainly not Christian Horner or anyone. But no, I wouldn't say it's tarnished his reputation. I still think he'll go down and be remembered as one of the greats.
I mean, there was a video that somebody had filmed and obviously leaked from his speech to the workers at the factory, and he got very emotional, and it's no surprise because you can see, that essentially was his life, right? You say, 8 Drivers' Championships, 6 Constructors' Championships, 124 wins, 287 podiums, 107 pole positions. It's incredible what he's achieved. And Andrew, I wonder, does he still bring something to another team? Could we see him pop up somewhere else in time?
Well, I mean, we could, but I think the issue is that anyone who wants to employ him is going to have to assess whether they want the potential downsides that come with him to be involved with their team. So first of all, there's these allegations that we're talking about. They were dismissed by 2 internal Red Bull investigations, but external to Red Bull, that situation has not been resolved, and we don't know how it's going to resolve yet. There's always going to be that, and that's always going to be mixed up in the situation that led to his departure. And then there was why he left, as in addition to that, the other aspects of why he left, which were the way he wanted to have absolute total control over every aspect of the business. The reality is, if you went to Ferrari, for example, as team principal, or Mercedes as team principal, or anywhere, you're always answerable to somebody. You can't ever have total control. I'm hearing that Horner does want to come back. I mean, he lives and breathes Formula One, but he doesn't want to come back in the same sort of role. He would rather have some kind of shareholding involved. But that's going to require, first of all, buying the shares that would give him some level of influence. And at the current market rates in Formula One, that would be incredibly expensive. And if he's not going to put his hand in his own pocket for that, which I think is unlikely, then he's going to need someone to buy them effectively for him and back him in that role. And that brings us back to the questions that I raised before. So I don't think it's going to be as easy to come back for him as some people seem to be thinking.
Well, we will wait to see what happens while the continued fallout of his departure from Red Bull occurs behind the scenes. But with the departure of Christian Horner, of course, comes a promotion for Racing Bull's team principal, Laurent Mekies. So, Beck, what do we know about Laurent? Who is he? Where's he come from?
He is incredibly well respected within the paddock. He has been around a long time. He's an engineer at heart. He's formerly worked at the FIA, which is always a helpful relationship to have. He's been at Ferrari as well. And then, as you say, he was brought into the Racing Bull stable. It was actually Horner who was quite instrumental in bringing Mekies into the Racing Bull's stable. He had his press conference earlier today, and he was very calm, as he is as a person. Very different character from Christian Horner. Just will have a completely different approach. And actually, he was asked if he will try and step into the shoes of Horner on and off the track, and he said, no one could possibly do that. And I think that's fair. I think he will have more of an approach of the style of Andrea Stella at McLaren, also an engineer, not really courting the media, but happy to talk to the media and happy to, help people. And as Stella does, he'll more than happily go off the record and you can say, I didn't quite get that, could you explain it? And he'll happily talk to you about it. Mekies, I'm sure, will take the same approach. But he said he's going to take his time. He was asked about structure. I think someone was trying to get hold of his contract during the press conference. He wasn't having any of it, understandably. But yeah, he said he's going to, this is going to take months, let's be honest. It's an organisation of 2,000 plus people. He got the phone call, actually, he said, while he was at the Racing Bulls factory. He actually asked, he said, I think it was Minslav who phoned him and he replied and said, okay, can you give me a couple of hours? In fact, I think you guys should take a couple of hours to make sure this is the right decision. And then he put down the phone and thought, what am I doing? This is the opportunity to, run Red Bull. So it's a bit overwhelming for him. And I think that's completely understandable. He was saying that he has been in touch with Horner. Horner was actually messaging him as well coming into the weekend. So that's great to hear. But it will be a very different approach. It'll be not a softly approach by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we will see a shift in culture and attitudes, and also how much we see of the Red Bull team principal. He won't be courting the limelight, the spotlight, in quite the same way that Christian Horner, who was an excellent marketeer of himself, used to do.
Well, let's hear from the Frenchman himself, speaking with Laurence Barretto.
Laurent, well, firstly, congratulations on the new job. Team principal of Red Bull. How does it feel?
What to say? The first thing you feel is that you feel honored, you feel privileged. It's an amazing team. The team has achieved so much in the last 20 years with Christians, and then when you start to meet the people, and you start to see the incredible amount of talents you have there, all the incredible spirit and desire to win that you have there. So you just want to meet the people, that's how it feels. You want to meet the people, you want to discover the magic, and yes, and try to see how eventually you can support.
So what have the board kind of said to you in terms of like the target and the future? Because obviously the team's going through a little bit of a difficult period in terms of performance and competitiveness. What have they kind of told you kind of need to shoot for?
There is only one desire at Red Bull, and it goes from the board to anybody at Red Bull F1 is they are here to fight for the wins, to fight for the championships, and they are here with the maximum commitment from the group to say we want the team to continue fighting for the win, fighting for the championships, getting the best car out there. So that's what naturally the target is. It is not a new target. Yeah. It is not a renewed commitment from. It is just a renewed commitment from the team and from the group to say, it's a team we want to fight for the championship with, and we'll do everything we need to do to continue doing so in the future.
So how do you do that? How do you kind of get to that point of winning again from where the team are at the minute?
The truth is the first part, as we said, is get to know the people.
Yeah.
Understand the strengths, understand the weakness, understand the dynamics. Then eventually find ways to contribute, find ways to support, make sure they work in the best possible conditions, make sure they can express their talent at the very best, because again, you are talking about the guys and the girls that have broken every possible record or nearly so in the last 20 years. So we have the best people there, and it's about how do we together build another competitive edge against competitions. Competition is growing. There is, as we said, there is this fire everywhere to try to think to the next step, and I think as a group we will just try to be as sharp as we can in building these next steps to the table. But really, it's about making sure our people are in the right environment with the right tools to have their talents doing the magic.
Now, obviously, it won't have escaped your attention that there's been a lot of chatter about Max's future. Is that one thing that you probably need to delve into a little bit more, just to ensure that kind of story can be put to bed?
The truth is, Red Bull is hugely committed to Max, and the way we can be hugely committed to Max is by giving him the best possible car, and giving him the best possible car is what every single person in the company wants more than anything else. So that's where the effort is made really, and the rest will be a consequence. But of course, Max is central to the project, and is key to the project, and we need his magic at the racetrack, and he has been with the team for a very long time, and he has a huge inputs in helping us driving the next competitive edge that we will need to build.
Lawrence Barretto speaking with the new boss of Red Bull, Laurent Mekies. Andrew, you were in that press conference. What else did you glean from Laurent?
Well, there was one line that was quite interesting. At one point, he said, he's talking about the people in the factory, he said, you see a lot of desire from everyone to get that Red Bull energy, to perhaps reduce the noise outside just to concentrate on racing. Now, I don't know whether he was deliberately referring to the last 18 months, or because it certainly sounded like it, whether that was a slight slip of the tongue. But I thought that was quite a revealing remark, because what it suggested was that it wasn't just us that were feeling, from the outside, all the drama around Red Bull. It suggests that it was actually having a negative impact on the team. And who knows, as well as the departures of Newey and Wheatley, maybe that disruption was also somewhere in the mix of why Red Bull have suffered this loss of performance in the last 12 months or so. And the other thing, of course, was that he was asked about keeping Verstappen, and he said, look, Max wants a fast car, and so the priority is to get to know the team as quickly as possible, to build up the next step of competitiveness, to get a fast car and hence make it an easy call for Max. Obviously, that's about Verstappen, and this question is whether he'll go to Mercedes next year or not, which I think, from what I'm hearing on the grapevine, is kind of receding now, and it does sound like the most likely scenario is that he will stay with Red Bull, at least for next year. So he gets a chance to see how the new regulations pan out, and then he can make a decision with more information.
Okay, well, that's perhaps what this means for Max Verstappen then in the immediacy, but rumours are still rife. Just a bit more on Laurent, if possible, because something I picked up on, and what a lot of other people are saying in the press conference and in the paddock, Andrew, is that he is another engineer that's sort of come up through the ranks and has found himself as team principal. And we're seeing that kind of trend could become more common. Komatsu at Haas, and of course Andrea Stella, I think, really kind of led the way on that charge. We're seeing this as a real rise, aren't we? And it seems to be working so far for the teams that have gone that way.
Well, also, don't forget Mattia Binotto, who was at Ferrari and is now in overall charge of the Audi F1 project. And look at the progress that Audi have made under Binotto and Jonathan Wheatley in the last few months, since they both got their feet under the table. I agree with you with the likeness to Stella. I think this is an appointment very much in that vein. I know there were people in the paddock who doubted whether Andrea Stella would make a good team principal. I never did. I thought he's always been an incredible communicator. He didn't really talk to the media very much in his previous role, but that was not because he wasn't capable of it. It's just that he didn't see it as part of his job. But as Beck will testify, he's probably the best communicator in the entire paddock. I wouldn't say Laurent Mekies is that level of communicator, but he's a very highly regarded engineer who people who know him well talk very, very highly of him. So, for example, Jonathan Wheatley described him as an incredibly impressive person who has a wonderful way of managing people. He says he has no doubt whatsoever that Laurent is going to excel in that particular regard. So you can see the thinking of Red Bull here. There's two aspects to it. There's one, it's a completely different character of team principal. He's not a self-publicist in the way Horner was. He's not a spiky character in the way Horner was. He's not aggressive defensive in the way that Horner was. And also he's an engineer who's focused on people management and empathy in the same way that Stella is. So I'm really interested to see how it pans out, actually.
I think a lot of people will be, and while it feels clear, Beck, that it's not going to see a day and night change on the first weekend on the job in terms of what impression he's going to give on Red Bull. He'll be very much trying to get his feet under the table and initially work out how to make that car faster. But I wonder as well, if we just look on the other side of the garage, that number 2 seat, currently occupied by Yuki Tsunoda, who of course was at Racing Bulls until recently, working under Laurent Mekies. I wonder if that actually might be his first real benefit that he's able to give the team with that pre-existing relationship, and perhaps giving Yuki a bit of a boost with that second car. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, Horner was never particularly the kind of person who would walk up to a driver and put his arm around him unless it was Max Verstappen. Red Bull make no bones about the fact that they have a number one driver. Yuki Tsunoda certainly is still in trouble for that seat, I would say. Possibly, in fact, probably likely he won't be in it next year. But it will be interesting to see how Mekies deals with it, because he will take a more conciliatory approach to Tsunoda, who isn't having a particularly great season, although no one in that second seat ever does. It was interesting, actually, from Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls. He said, if anyone knows how fast I am, it's Laurent Mekies. And he's feeling quite optimistic at the moment with his former boss now at the A team, as it were, that he might get the promotion. So it's really interesting to see what is going to happen, because there are a lot of people's careers riding on what happens with Max Verstappen next, but also with Laurent Mekies and with Horner's departure, because, Benny touched on it about he expects Verstappen to be in that Red Bull next season. So does that mean George Russell and Kimi Antonelli get their contracts finally for next year? Because they've certainly been waiting. George Russell absolutely saying yesterday again, oh yes, I'm sure Mercedes are still talking to Verstappen. I've not had my contract yet, nothing to report. So still stirring the pot in that regard. But it will be really interesting to see what Mekies does, because that second seat is, who'd want it? Let's be honest. They all seem to. But it's absolutely, you wouldn't go anywhere near it with the barge pole.
No, it almost seems no matter who you put in, it's tough. But it's interesting what you say about so many kind of driver careers on the current grid. Really, their future depends on Max Verstappen's next move. Okay, it seems like he may well stay there for next year with this new regulation to see how it sits. Ultimately, he can do that, because 2027 will come around pretty quickly. And actually, I would say it almost doesn't matter who else you are on the grid. If you're performing well and Max Verstappen wants in, you'll do absolutely everything to get Max Verstappen in your car, whether that's paying off another driver, giving him as much money of Verstappen, that is, as he wants. Verstappen has surely the pick of the bunch at whatever time he chooses.
So Laurent Mekies was absolutely spot on when he said all Verstappen wants is a fast car. He's 27, he's got time on his side. His contract with Red Bull runs until the end of 2028. So if he goes in next season and the Red Bull is rubbish and it hasn't done well in the regulations, and he looks over at, let's say, Aston Martin, where Adrian Newey has gone to, he could say, actually, do you know what, Adrian? Give him a call. Hello, old chum. Have you got a seat for me? Remember me? And I absolutely promise you that whatever is written in Max Verstappen's contract, it is worth absolutely diddly squat, as most contracts within Formula One are. He does have a performance clause. We know this. We don't 100% know what it is, although apparently Andrew Benson knows what it is, but he won't share it with us. But we know it's along the lines of if he finishes below third, possibly. Some people thought it was by the summer break. I think Benny's suggesting it's maybe by the end of the year. But at the end of the day, money talks louder than anything else in this sport. So if Lawrence Stroll suddenly finds out that Max Verstappen is keen to come over, your man's got very deep pockets. So I'm sure he could find a way.
And then we're on a whole nother podcast of what happens to Fernando Alonso next, because I don't think Lance Stroll's going to be making way on that one.
Well, Lance Stroll's outperforming Fernando Alonso this year, isn't that right, Benny?
No.
I'm just looking at the driver standings.
When you look at it on paper form, I think you've got to go with Beck on that one. But before Andrew gets wound up by Beck, we should also...
There's no chance of that.
I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying.
I know Rebecca's games, don't you worry.
We know. Look, clearly the future of Max Verstappen is going to be one to watch, even though he is at least said he will be there next year. That doesn't stop everybody else from the idle chatter. One person who we do need to mention is the man who replaces Laurent Mekies at Racing Bulls, because with Mekies' promotion means Alan Permain takes over. And Andrew, Alan has been a long-standing member of the Formula One paddock. It seems a bit bizarre that he's only now just team principal, because I feel like he's sort of been running teams for a while now.
Well, on a de facto level, he has, but he's a person, Alan Permain, who has never sought or wanted to be a team principal. He's been through a series of very senior roles. He was at the Renault, well, they called it the Enston team in Formula One, but it was, the Benetton Renault, Lotus Renault, Alpine team for 36 years. And at various times in that period, he was effectively running it. So in the sort of era when Kimi Raikkonen and Romain Grosjean were there, he and James Allison, the technical director, were effectively running it together. He was the sort of practical day-to-day boss through the latter years of that team. He's been like a sporting director, racing director type level role for a long time. He didn't expect this to happen. He didn't want it to happen. I think he was surprised that it happened. But rather like Laurent Mekies with the Red Bull team principal role, when people come to you and say, we want you to do this role and we believe that you can and we believe in you, then, you can't really say no. And I think One of the really interesting aspects of this, just as a side issue actually, is that I talked about the Benetton Renault Enston team. At that team in the early 90s were 3 people who have gone on to become 3 team principals in Formula One. That's Alan Permain, Jonathan Wheatley, who we've talked about already in this programme, and Steve Nielsen, who has been appointed managing director of Alpine, and he's starting work in September. They were working together at Benetton in the early 90s. They've been very, very close friends ever since. Alan Permain and Steve and Jonathan Wheatley were neighbours in a town just outside London for a long time until Wheatley moved to Switzerland for Sauber. They're now going to be 30% pretty much of the team principals in Formula One. It's quite remarkable.
Well, I particularly enjoyed Jonathan Wheatley put up an Instagram with him and Alan Permain from I think must have been the Enstone days back in the day of them celebrating a win, and now both very happy for each other to be appointed in those roles. We're really seeing a new generation of team principal being appointed over the last few years. Andrew, I think you've got to go now and you've got to do some important corresponding. So we'll say goodbye to you now and we'll swap you out for a rising star in the motorsport world. It's a warm checkered flag welcome to Alicia Pomarski. Hello, Alicia. How are you?
I'm all good, thank you, and thank you very much for having me on the show.
A pleasure. Well, you've actually been in the commentary box with us all day so far. This is your first time doing commentary, right?
It is, yeah.
Have you found it?
Completely new experience, to be honest. It's more nerve-wracking than being in the car, I'd say, because you actually have to think about what you say. So, respect to you. Honestly, I couldn't do it, but I've really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Now, of course, you are currently racing. You are following the F1 calendar as you are part of the Red Bull team racing in F1 Academy. How's the season going?
The season's been amazing so far, thank you. It's been such an amazing experience. It's a dream come true to be racing as a support series to F1 on the global stage. It's been a big learning curve for me. There's been a new car to get used to, loads of new circuits and new teams, so a completely new group of people that I've had to adapt to. But it's been so far so good. I'm constantly learning, progressing, gaining more and more confidence with every lap that I do in the car, which is always the aim. And yeah, we've got 3 race weekends left now, racing at Zandvoort, Singapore and Las Vegas, so hopefully we can keep the upwards trajectory going and end the year on a high.
Yeah, well, 1 win so far, currently 5th in the standings. Before F1 Academy, you runner-up in GB4?
Yes, that's right.
That's incredible, because that's a mixed racing championship as well, and then that gives you a nice level to get onto F1 Academy and then go from there. Done a bit of Formula E as well, have you? Or?
I did a test day last year, yeah. Those cars are crazy. It's a completely different ball game, electric cars, honestly. That's the fastest car I've ever driven.
Wow.
But yeah, the GB4 car last year finished 2nd in the championship, as you mentioned. That was my first year in single-seaters, so very much just for me to learn and get experience, a year's worth of experience under my belt in single-seaters before then moving into F1 Academy with the support of the Red Bull Racing Pepe Jeans Academy programme. So yeah, it's a dream come true.
Well, she's quick on track and she's quick in the commentary box as well. So it's a pleasure to have you with us, Alicia. Right, we're going to take a look ahead really to the weekend and what's coming your way as well. Obviously, we've seen off the biggest news so far coming into this weekend. But in terms of how the championship is looking, Lando Norris has closed the gap to the championship leader Oscar Piastri to 8 points with back-to-back victories for the Brit in Austria and Silverstone. Now, how do we look back on Silverstone? Beck, did Norris luck into that win? Of course, Piastri got that 10-second time penalty with the safety car infringement. And really, for the first time, I felt like we saw Oscar Piastri, especially on the podium afterwards, we saw him angry. He was upset. And normally he's a pretty cool customer.
He is the coolest of customers, I would say, in the paddock. No, I don't think he lucked into it. I think Piastri got the penalty fair and square, and Norris had made sure during that race that he was in the right position to take advantage of anything happening by his teammate ahead of him. So, no, I think it was a deserved victory. It was a very much needed victory. As you say, only 8 points between them now. I think that's going to be crucial at the halfway point until, obviously, this weekend happens. This is round 13. So, no, I don't think he lucked into it. I think that's unfair.
Oh, all right then.
Yeah.
Unfair.
Yeah.
Bold. Okay. Well, I mean, Alicia, though, in terms of, we talk a lot about momentum and how it swings constantly between driver and driver. Obviously, it's gone pretty well for Lando Norris, and the momentum is with him. But Austria and again in Silverstone, it's not like Oscar Piastri was lacking pace to take the win outright. But how important is having momentum with you as a driver?
Momentum is key, to be honest. It's very much a confidence-based business. It's really a mental game, I say a lot, because we talk a lot about the physical preparation of drivers that's needed to get ready for a race weekend, but the mentality is equally, if not more important, in my opinion, to be honest. So for Oscar Piastri, we mentioned Silverstone where he's got that penalty, quite a silly mistake, to be honest, because I think he had that race in the bag before that penalty. So yeah, it's interesting to see how it'll go this weekend. We're over the midway point in the season now. It's round 13 of Lando versus Oscar, but who knows which way it will swing, to be honest. It's a really exciting battle, and I don't think you can predict which way it'll go. So I think hopefully they'll keep fighting until the last race of the season. For us fans anyway, it's great for us to watch, probably more stressful for the drivers. But yeah, it's great to watch.
It is. We talk about, confidence is key though, Beck, and we know that Lando Norris has been struggling with particularly the front end of that McLaren up until a new suspension element change that's designed to make it feel less numb, to give them a bit more bite. Has that, it seemingly has worked, and is this now advantage Norris going forward?
I don't think there's an advantage to either side, really. I think the car they'll keep developing it to a degree. Obviously, we know teams are looking ahead to next year with 2026 regulations, a complete change. So there is very much a question mark over when teams decide to keep going with this year or start looking towards next year. I think with Norris having come off the back of those 2 wins, it would feel like it would be all in his favour, but there is just something about Oscar Piastri where if you wrote him off, more for you.
Well, does Norris think he has the car and the confidence to pip his teammate Piastri to be top of the pile come the end of the season? Let's hear from him.
I mean, it's my goal, but he's a pretty damn good driver. So, yeah, I'm never that guy. I'm not that guy that's just going to say yes. But, I feel more comfortable than what I was. Am I in a perfect, happy place? No. Still working on it. But, I think we made some steps forward. We made progress. But I'm still going to have, some trickier weekends, and I'll have some great ones. So I just need to keep working, and that's all I can do for now.
Lando Norris speaking a little earlier there. We'll see, and we'll talk about what happened in sprint qualifying. But while ahead of this weekend, Norris may have won the British Grand Prix, there is no doubt the biggest winner from the weekend was Nico Hülkenberg on the German's 239th Grand Prix start. 15 years into his Formula One career, he finally stood on the podium, Alicia. I mean, what a result. I don't think there was a single dry eye in the house on that Sunday at Silverstone.
If that's not proof of never give up, then I don't know what is, to be honest. What a result for him. He was running in P3 for a lot of the race, to be honest, and I was there at Silverstone. I was watching from the BRDC clubhouse, and Lewis Hamilton was behind him in P4, fitted soft tyres towards the end. Hülkenberg was on mediums. And to be honest, I thought he's got no chance now. Lewis will just catch him down and overtake him and take that podium away, get his first podium for Ferrari as well. I think the whole of Silverstone thought the same. But Nico just managed to hold him off. And listening back to his radio throughout the race as well, he made all of the strategy calls pretty much himself, just based off his experience. He was able to just judge the right call, when to box, when to not, what tyres to bolt on, when not to, when to stay out. So really clever from Hülkenberg, and I think everybody was just so happy for him. Everybody was elated, so super happy for Hülkenberg.
I mean, everyone really was happy, weren't they? You could tell because Sauber, face it, they weren't really expecting it, and they didn't have any champagne.
No.
So they had to get all the other teams, and Mercedes were first up, just carrying over bags and bottles of champagne up to them, which of Sauber we were very grateful for, and the social media teams were loving too. But I thought it was very kind, and it was very indicative of actually everybody was very happy for Hülkenberg. It was a good scene, and also this is why we love sport, right? Because you just keep going, anything can happen. We've got the great run of the European races, and it's just such good racing. And I mean, Alicia, I'm absolutely with you. I thought Hamilton was going to do it and spoil the party, and almost there was a part of me thinking, I wonder if Hamilton will just think, oh no, maybe I'll just let him have the podium. You have it. I've had loads. I've had over 100 podiums. It'll be fine. I mean, no, absolutely not. That absolutely did not happen. Known Lewis Hamilton long enough to know that he wouldn't give anything away. So yeah, no, it was absolutely brilliant, and I love how all the teams rallied around them to support them and to give them the champagne.
Well, for the man whose stats now read 239 starts, 1 pole position and 1 podium, it was a Lego trophy that he received. Let's hear from him.
Yeah, an incredible race, and those conditions, very tricky, but made all the right decisions, and obviously rewarded ourselves coming from last, which was pretty crazy and special. The aftermath, was also overwhelming. The feedback and responses we got, well over 700 messages. So it took me a good week to work through it all. But obviously amazing and nice to feel and to see all that.
And you raced back to Hinwil, didn't you, straight after the race? What sort of reception did you get there?
Yeah, also a warm one, obviously, and a very happy one. I think it was important to go back, and cherish the moment and share that with everyone in the factory as well, not just at the track with everyone. So it was good. Obviously, amazing memories, amazing emotions for us, and I hope that they can boost us for the rest of the season.
Nico Hülkenberg then, and with that, he rockets up inside the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship, and he puts Sauber up into 6th in the Constructors' Championship. So they now are a real threat to the likes of Williams, who are just ahead of them, and perhaps some of those teams have sort of been discounting Sauber, but now, not just the podium, Nico was on a run of point-scoring finishes. So kind of, I think, just highlights a little bit, Beck, do you think why Audi have signed him as their driver to get those points when they are available for a team that we're not expecting to be at the front? Obviously, Sauber transitioning to Audi from next year. Yeah, look, let's be honest. When Sauber signed him, it wasn't exactly the most inspirational signing. People were questioning it. He is, what is he now? He's 37. He's 37 years old. But they signed him for experience. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And as Alicia said, he was calling the strategy play throughout the Silverstone race. He has been consistently driving that car forward with the development. One of the things that's really important that you just can't quantify, and also that you don't really ever get to see as a fan, is how important the driver feedback is to developing this car. So you take the car out on track, and the engineers, the mechanics, they have all the data under the sun. But when you have a good enough driver with loads of experience who can feel the car in a certain way, or it's going through a corner and it doesn't quite show up on the data, the driver comes back in and says, actually, I'm just going to challenge that data slightly, because data is mostly right, let's be honest, but actually the human input from the driver is absolutely essential to developing a car. And we see it time in, time out. The best drivers are in the best cars, and a lot of that is connected to each other, because the best drivers, Lewis Hamilton is fantastic at the feedback. People have always said it. George Russell is actually very, very good at it as well. Max Verstappen, equally brilliant. And it is those top-end drivers who can give that kind of feedback, like Hülkenberg will be doing at Sauber, helping with that development. It is so important. And it doesn't matter how good you are as a rookie, you don't have those 15 seasons under your belt. And that is kind of priceless at this stage for someone like Audi coming in, spending all of that money. They needed that experience. Experience in the cockpit, and of course on the managing side as well, Jonathan Wheatley, Mattia Binotto, part of that team too. So it's good news all round so far for Sauber. Let's see how they get on this weekend. And unfortunately for Nico Hülkenberg, we have had qualifying for the sprint, which we'll have a little look back now, shall we? It didn't really pan out for Hülkenberg. He's down in 17th. But it did pan out, Alicia, for Oscar Piastri, who reigned supreme in the end. And he's been strong pretty much since the first lap in FP1. But he had a few heart attacks along the way.
Yeah, what a lap in the end of SQ3 for Oscar Piastri. Just under 0.5 of a second in front of Max Verstappen and 0.6 ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. So that's a huge confidence booster for him. Not that he needs it, because he's very, very calm. But you mentioned that heart attack moment that he had in SQ2 when he had his lap deleted due to track limits at Radion. So that was a bit of a sketchy moment for him. He just managed to get through to SQ3 in 10th position, so he was nearly knocked out in SQ2. So then to be able to jump back in SQ3 and deliver such a lap, it really just shows his car mentality and what a level he's performing to at the moment. So yeah, I'd say he's probably favourite for the weekend, definitely. He was 0.4 away from being kicked out. 0.4. No wonder he apologised for giving everyone a heart attack.
But this is the thing, though. It was a mistake. He had his lap time deleted for exceeding the track limits. Basically, cut a corner essentially at the top of Radion over the blind crest. But in that final SQ3 session, especially, they all left it right to the end. One lap is really all they gave themselves, and you cannot afford to make a mistake. So it's great for us, but it really leaves them all to do. Piastri managed to nail it. I don't think anyone really made any major mistakes, but Norris finds himself, I say, down in third. But crucially, there's the Red Bull of Max Verstappen that's splitting the two.
Well, yes, and it wasn't a brilliant lap from Max Verstappen, who spent most of the one and only practice session this morning moaning about the car. He's never particularly happy in FP1, let's be honest. But we're talking about sprint qualifying, but it is an indicator of what we're looking at for the rest of the weekend. However, this is Spa, a track where you go racing. I mean, who doesn't remember Max Verstappen starting 14th and being in the lead by about lap 8? Oscar Piastri actually said the worst place to start at Spa was on pole, and I think he might be right. So I think for Norris being third, he was a bit grumpy, as you would expect from someone fighting for the World Championship, particularly against his teammate. But I don't think, sleeping overnight, he's not going to lose any sleep over it, because I think that run into the first corner and then up through Eau Rouge and up Raidillon, I think then you've got that long Kemmel straight. There will be carnage, let's be honest. The midfield are all up there. We saw an unbelievable SQ2 where just the track evolved so rapidly, and it benefited both the Hasses, Gasly, Bortoleto and Sauber. So it's a real mix of the top 10. And what that generally does is it throws up the sort of very experienced guys at the start, the perhaps not necessarily quite so confident guys, maybe with not so much experience, throw in a couple of rookies there, and it makes for a very interesting start.
Yeah, less points up for grabs. 8 points for the winner of the sprint race compared to that's 25 for the Grand Prix, and only the top 8 get points. Goes down to 1 point for 8th place. But for the likes of the championship challengers, your Piastris, your Norrises, well, every point will be crucial. But as you say, Bet, Bortoleto would love to scoop up 3-4 points if he can, and in a way, nothing to lose in that sense. So it will be interesting to see how that pans out. It's going to be one to tune in for. It's basically a little bit of a glimpse as to what the first part of the Grand Prix will look like as well. No mandatory pit stops, 15 laps out and out. Now, Alicia, Beck says pole, and Piastri agrees, maybe the worst place to start.
Can I just be clear? I didn't say it. I was just quoting Piastri.
Well, I'm going to say you said it. Piastri says it's the worst place to start the Grand Prix. I think Lewis Hamilton would beg to differ, because he's starting all the way down in 18th after a tough SQ1.
Very difficult day for Lewis Hamilton and sort of Ferrari, really, because Charles Leclerc, I think P4, but he was still 7.5 tenths off Oscar Piastri. So they are just lacking on outright pace. But yeah, difficult moment for Lewis Hamilton. Looked like he had a lot of rear locking into the final bus stop chicane, which is a bit strange because you often see front lockups on the front right inside tyre going into the final chicane in a hard braking zone like that. But the car just pivoted straight round just as he went into the entry of the corner. So very difficult one for Lewis. He'll be pleased that it's for the sprint qualifying result, not the main qualifying result. Hopefully he can get some good data for tomorrow in terms of the car setup, how it feels in a race distance, in a long run. But yeah, very difficult day for Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari in general.
Incredibly frustrating day because they've come to Spa with some big upgrades. Lewis Hamilton was quite punchy on Thursday, saying he's been talking to all the different departments, he's pushing them harder, he's not necessarily happy with how every single department is working. He ran off a string of names like Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel, who never won a title with Ferrari, and then said, that won't be me. So he doesn't actually seem to be that settled at Ferrari at the moment. And I don't mean in the sense that he's going to leave, but he's clearly not quite happy with what's happening back at Maranello, what's happening with the car. And then he now has the unenviable record of being the first Ferrari to be out of the first qualifying session of a sprint race since they started. So not a good day at the office.
You like that stat, don't
I do
you?
like that stat,
You had it up your sleeve earlier.
I did, yeah, because it will, and I don't like it for this reason, but it will really annoy Lewis Hamilton. It's the kind of record that he does not want.
No, well, he'll have a bit of work to do, and I suppose essentially when it's a sprint weekend for a top team like that and you've got new upgrades, the sprint race, unless there is absolute carnage ahead of them, it will turn into a bit of a testing session for Lewis Hamilton down there. Should also mention, tough day for Mercedes as well. George Russell in 13th and Kimi Antonelli last, Alicia. I mean, Antonelli found himself in the gravel, didn't he, at SQ1 and didn't manage to get another lap in time. And Russell was a curious one, but maybe some damage picked up from him?
Yeah, another really poor performance really from Mercedes in general. Not really sure what happened to George Russell really in the end, but we did hear after on the radio post SQ2 that he might have picked up some damage at some point, hence not being able to improve and head through to SQ3. So difficult day. Same for Kimi Antonelli. We think he might have got some floor damage after his spin at turn 14 in SQ1, meaning that he couldn't then improve and move on to SQ2. So very surprising grid. The order's completely mixed up. Didn't expect that at all for Mercedes, particularly in a little bit lower temperatures as well. It's only 22 degrees at Spa, which isn't cold, but it's not as hot as some of the countries that they've raced in. And Mercedes obviously tend to operate better in the lower temperatures. So hopefully they can learn from whatever went wrong and try to get it right in the main qualifying session tomorrow.
Well, Russell actually blamed Antonelli for going out in SQ2 because it was Antonelli's big off in SQ1, which kicked up a whole load of gravel onto the track, which actually delayed the start of SQ2 and SQ3. But George Russell immediately went through that gravel and then complained and said the car didn't feel right. Did manage to get through to SQ2, but said afterwards that the car just felt awful after that, and then the team think he does have damage. So laying the blame at his teammates' door.
Well, we'll see how it all pans out.
Which is never a good idea, by the way, to do that publicly.
Well, yeah. Well, George Russell was pretty...
Wasn't exactly Antonelli's fault that he went...
No,
he didn't do it deliberately to mess up his day, did he?
George Russell was also being pretty punchy in the last month or so, talking about his contract situation and being pretty open about that. So I don't think Russell really cares at the moment, does he?
That's
but
very true.
It's going to make for some entertaining racing, which I think will be made even more so because there's some weather about tomorrow for the sprint. So with that in mind then, we will just have a brief look at Sunday's Grand Prix, but I want your sprint race winner, please, from each of you, and because Alicia's making her debut this weekend, we'll give her a little bit more time to think. So Beck, you can go first.
I think only a fool would predict the winner here. So
well, I'm asking you.
Are you going to make me? Well, then call me a fool. I mean, it's hard to see with Piastri's half a second quicker than Max Verstappen. I still think my money is on Max Verstappen over the weekend, but I'm going to give it to Piastri at this moment in time, if you're going to force me, because there's only 15 laps with this being such a long track. So if he can get a good run down to turn 1, then yeah, I'm going to give it to the Australian.
And I'll give it to Max Verstappen.
Oh, shock. The Red Bull affiliated driver gives it to the Red Bull driver.
Well, with the slipstream down the back straight, on the Kemmel straight on that lap 1, there might then be a safety car. Max Verstappen's in the lead. See, I've got it all planned out, so I think Max has got it.
Of course, then that's just the precursor to Sunday's Grand Prix, which will be a little bit longer, 44 laps. George Russell won on the road last year with an exceptional one-stop strategy, but was disqualified for being underweight. Pirelli have actually brought a jump in compounds this weekend for the tyres. I know we love talking about tyre talk, but that could play a factor in trying to make it a two-stop race, making some more strategy around, and again, weather in play for that. But I think it's clear Sunday Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri, he'll be determined to bounce back after the Norris back-to-back wins.
Yeah, absolutely, because at the moment, all the momentum is with Norris with those 2 wins. He is only 8 points behind Piastri. Piastri knows that, and he'll want to go into the summer break. We're only 2 races to go. We've got here and then we've got Budapest, and he will want a bit more of a cushion so he can enjoy his holiday a bit more. But I think Piastri, how he came out today on the Friday with the sprint qualifying, that pole was absolutely exceptional, and he said that this is his favourite track and he reckons that gave him a couple of tenths of a second. Well, where do the other couple of tenths come from? Because that is just absolute pure raw speed.
Exceptional work so far, but there's still another qualifying to go. We'll have the Grand Prix qualifying after the sprint race on Saturday, and then it's Sunday's Grand Prix as normal. Right, okay, I think that just about does us. Thank you very much, Rebecca Clancy, Alicia Pomowski, for joining me for this one. You can hear the sprint race right here on 5 Live on Saturday, racing underway at 11 a.m. UK time. Sunday's Grand Prix will also be on 5 Live, lights out from 2 o'clock. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. We'll see you tomorrow.